All right, let's dive into something really fascinating today. We're going to unpack a powerful story from a 13th century text. It's all about a spiritual struggle, a battle between personal effort and divine grace. And it all kicks off with one big question.
I mean, think about it. Have you ever been faced with a task you knew was incredibly important, maybe even sacred, but it just felt so overwhelming, so completely beyond your own strength? That's a really human feeling, and it's right at the very heart of the story we're looking at today.
So our story starts with a person known as Saint Gertrude. Now, according to the text, she felt that the duty of confession was this monumental, impossible task. It wasn't that she didn't have faith. It was more like she had this profound sense of inadequacy, like there was no way she could ever do it perfectly on her own.
And you know what's really interesting is how the source material itself describes this feeling. The text says this struggle was allowed to increase the fervor of some souls, and it felt as if she had been pierced with thorns. That really paints a picture, doesn't it? You can almost feel the struggle she was going through.
So, in the middle of all this distress, Gertrude has this conversation with our Lord in the text, who asks her this exact question. And this is really the core of the whole thing. Should she keep struggling, relying on her own painful effort, or should she just let go and trust the divine power to handle it?
After that exchange, she makes a choice. A big one. She agrees to trust. So even though she's still scared and feels totally inadequate, she decides to move forward, to face what the text calls the bath of confession. And this, right here, is where the story gets really interesting.
As she's preparing, something incredible happens. She's shown a powerful vision. And it's not just one path forward, but two, symbolized by two completely different baths. This vision is the absolute key to the whole story, so let's take a closer look at exactly what she saw.
So the vision shows these two options, and wow, they could not be more different. On one hand, you have a bath literally filled with thorns. It looks like it was prepared with her own sins, and it promises nothing but a painful, tearing experience. But on the other side, a beautiful bath covered in thornless roses, giving off this sweet, life-giving smell. The contrast is just huge.
And her reaction is totally instant. You can't blame her, right? She sees that beautiful, fragrant bath, and she knows, immediately, that's the one prepared by the divine, not by her own painful struggles. She's just drawn to it, and you can feel her recoil from that thorny alternative she was so afraid of.
Okay, so what is all this symbolism about? What do these two baths actually mean? This is the big aha moment of the story, where the whole thing is unpacked and the deeper meaning is revealed, both to Gertrude and to us.
All right. So that first bath, the thorny one, that represents being purified through the bitterness of penance. It's the path of grinding it out on your own, of painfully digging up all your failings and just enduring the suffering that comes with it. Sure, it gets you clean, but it's through a whole lot of self-inflicted hardship.
And then you have the second bath. It's the complete opposite. This one represents purification through the sweet embrace of divine love. Here, the soul isn't cleansed by its own hard, painful work, but by the interior joys of divine grace. Sins are exposed not to some harsh judgment, but to what the text poetically calls the south wind of charity.
So the real kicker is which bath gets chosen. In the vision, our Lord directs her to enter the perfumed bath, and the result is immediate. Her soul is made whiter than snow. And what's really interesting is the text says she was actually happier that the choice was made for her, instead of her choosing the painful path herself, just out of a sense of duty.
And you know, this one moment just changes everything for Gertrude. Her whole understanding of what it means to be purified flips completely, from this painful burden she has to carry all by herself, to a loving embrace that she's invited to accept.
So, to boil it all down, the story is showing us two very different ways to get clean, spiritually speaking. You can do it through the bitterness of penance, that's the thorns, or you can do it through the sweet embrace of divine love, that's the perfumed bath. And the resolution to Gertrude's terrible struggle is that she's ultimately cleansed by that second method. The escape from her burden doesn't come from her finally succeeding through her own agonizing effort. It comes when she stops trying so hard and just accepts the gift of grace. So what does this all mean for her in the real world? How did this vision actually change her experience of the very thing that once felt so impossible?
And the change is, wow, it's immediate and it's total. The text tells us that after this whole experience, the confession she had been dreading so much, the one that used to be so painful, now felt light and easy. The burden was just gone. So when you get right down to it, the whole allegory is making one really powerful point. Yeah, you can try to purify yourself through your own painful penance, but the story presents this other, more powerful path, purification by accepting divine grace and love. And it can do in a single moment what a lifetime of struggle might never achieve.
And that kind of leaves us with a pretty deep question for our own lives, doesn't it? I mean, we live in a world that glorifies personal effort, the hustle, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. So how might this old story about thorns and perfumed water make us rethink the balance between our own striving and the power of just accepting help or grace or love when it's offered? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me.